Hey guys, this is Crime Scene Analysis. I'm Angie,
Jess.
and we're here to discuss episode 210. I have to do the spirit fingers since I've inadvertently created this habit now that I have to do. It is written by Eileen Jones and Alexis Siegel combo, and it was directed by Satya Baba, who also directed The Job.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously we are a man short this week. Caroline is out there living that healthcare hero life, and duty calls. It is what it is.
Yep.
And this is not our income. In fact, we get nothing from doing this at this point.
Yep.
So we have day jobs and things
We're
to
just
do.
doing this for fun.
So she's out there making some paper and saving some lives and doing her job. So we miss you, but way to be a BA.
Yes. She'll be back next week. Actually, she'll be back next week, and I won't be here.
Jeff will be gone. I feel like I'm getting so much one-on-one time. Like, it's just amazing. Okay, so let's get into it. At 104, we have Capshaw in the middle of a very prophetic dream. Very symbolic. I mean, we've got her just being completely just praised by Martin, and you're amazing, and this is all you, and blah blah blah. And it's kind of everything she ever wanted. If you remember back the last step, all she wanted was to fit into the boys club, right, and be one of those people that got praise and was in the elite of her field. And she's getting praise from one of the most elite in the field. So I feel like it's a little bit relationshipy, sexual, but then it's also like the career side of her that feels like she has failed, that she's kind of fallen into this position. And then, of course, it leads to the fact that she is so distracted by Martin that she has no clue what the reality is of what's going on in front of her, which is her patient is dying on the table. And that leads so beautifully into this episode later, or I'm sorry, into the moment in the episode later where, she is so blinded by Martin that literally people are dying around her and she doesn't understand or isn't comprehending or is blinded to that situation. So very cool. Like, for a couple minute segment, lots to unpack analysis wise in that scene.
Oh yeah, especially the fact that we see the camera pan and the patient on the table is her.
Yes.
So that was quite interesting. That caught me off guard when we were watching live. I was like, wait, is that supposed to that's her?
Yeah, like it took a couple times because there's so much, the issues with the mouth, like being intubated and all that stuff. I'm like, wait, is it not? And then it's like, okay, it looks pretty similar.
Yep. Oh, and then to throw something in there for Caroline, because she's not here, she was I'm surprised I didn't write this down because I was yelling about it when we saw them drilling into the back of someone's head. They're wearing masks this time, but like Martin's beard's just like out in the open, chilling,
doing its beard thing.
Normally your PPE would properly completely cover any bit of hair, and if you have a beard, a surgical cap would go on it. And then yeah, so just throwing that in there for Caroline, because I know she was ranting about it last night. But
not to mention, there is no better place to do the pull your mask down to talk than like, it's one of the things that frustrates me so much, because a couple of my colleagues at work have this thing where they will get really close to you, which, first of all, even COVID free, it's like, space bubble, please.
I don't need you in.
And then they will pull the mask down to like talk to you, and I'm like, hello, like, thank you.
I don't need to read your lips. You can leave it on.
Yeah, like, or just speak louder.
Yeah.
Just throw that out there. So yeah, like, it's no better place to completely break all the PPE rules than when there's an open body in front of you and we're doing some type of serious.
Yeah. So yeah, I knew I could tell right away from the coloring that was, well, aside from the fact that Capshaw and Martin were standing and doing a surgery, that wouldn't be happening in reality, but they always color the dreams a certain way, and
they're actually lit.
Yes, they're actually lit, which is why we have a visual cue before we find any information out that it's actually a dream.
So immediately following that, we are in the loft with Jess and Malcolm. I love that Jess is like surprised that Malcolm's up and moving around in his own apartment. I'm like, you're in your son's apartment, right? Like, he will be present at some point. My main focus of this, like, I don't know why, but the never ever room label absolutely cracks me up. Like it, because it makes me feel like at some point, like maybe when he was getting ready to go to Harvard or do something, like teenage Malcolm got his own place
Mhm.
and he was the only one that wanted all of Martin's effects. And so the combo of teenage Malcolm and Jess named the room of Martin's effects the Never Ever Room, like they were like 5 years old.
Interesting.
Because like
People were like,
what adult like never ever ever am I gonna like? It's such a like childlike
sure,
phrase
yeah,
to say.
yeah. I was that definitely had me cracking up when she came out. She was like, "I'm in the Never Ever Room," and I'm like, but people on Twitter were like, why is it at Malcolm's? Like, why you got all
Like you
this
can't
space?
afford a
Yeah,
storage
like you got all
room
this
or
space at the Milton house,
absolutely
and
like
it's
far
you
more.
put it at Malcolm's.
And my thing is like you took all the time to board up the office in the basement. Why didn't you board those things up into the office in the basement of the Milton house? Like
Mm-hmm.
there were still boxes full of his stuff in that office.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I get it, plot device. It's all
Yep.
good. And honestly, just in the future, knowing that like 5 seasons down the road, there's a never ever room
There's
will
a
make
Never
me
Ever
very
Room.
happy. I'm
Yep.
not gonna lie.
Yep. And then her PTSD memory orgy that she throws out.
So I literally wrote PTSD memory orgy, band name, called it. Like because
That's great.
my brother and I play this game of like band name called it. Like if you hear
Oh, that's
something, and
fantastic.
all I could do was like, oh my god, this is like a rock band for sure. Like this is a platinum rock band name. Like we
Did you
are
did you
PTSD memory RJ. Like
did you text him that? I know he
oh,
wouldn't
well,
get the context,
I
but did you
wish he
text
would
it?
watch the show. I'm gonna have to send him
Oh
like a clip
man.
of my notes to be like,
Yes.
I found a
Yes.
band
Just
name.
hey, see if you can find that clip and just send it to him and be like, hey, found a band name.
That made me very, very happy. I also enjoyed the little keychain that this mystery bank key is connected to. My mom had a keychain almost identical. Like it was the same situation where there was like a little picture of me and my brother on it, and
Oh.
it looked like it kind of like looked like the homemade ornaments that you shrink
Yeah.
down, you know, like
Yeah, it did.
something like that. And I just had like a little flashback. I was like, oh, I remember those days back in the 90s when that
Oh
stuff was
boy.
relevant.
Oh boy.
So at 3:15, we're still in the loft, but this is kind of the first time where Jess drops some like Danny hints to Malcolm, and we learned that this is like the first of many call outs to Malcolm this episode of like, we all see it. You're not hiding anything. Um, and I mean, there's really no confirming or denying in this moment for Malcolm. It's really just, hard to get close to people when you're hiding a gruesome murder and dismemberment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when that person's a cop.
Yeah, it's definitely poking.
Yes, he kind of blows it off a little bit without having to be truthful, which honestly any normal adult probably does when their parents are trying to ask about something that's a non-relationship yet at this point.
Yeah.
I love at 6:01, it's the first time that we see Daryl is on the infirmary bed talking to Dr. Capshaw in the background, and then in the foreground you have Hector and Pete. And I love this trio. I'm so excited that they've kind of come back. I know Hector is like very much a fan favorite. But personally, again, as I said in some previous episodes, like the Broadway side of me, you have Christian Borle, who's a 2-time Tony winner in this moment, who I actually got to meet for all of 30 seconds at a stage door. But I'm like, this guy's amazing. He's like the nicest guy to fans and blah, blah, blah. And then also San Galja, who plays Daryl. I got to see and see him live in Moulin Rouge and stuff. And so it's just really neat to be like, people I've actually seen live. Like I've been in the same room with those people and they're very
so
nice
cool.
people. At least
that's really
they front
cool.
very well and they were very sweet. So I love it. I actually forgot about Willie. I'm not gonna lie. Because he had been gone for such a long time when he's like, you gonna like ignore Willie? I was like, oh yeah, right. Willie's a thing. I totally forgot.
I love it.
And the fact that Dr. Capshaw it just rolls like, hey man, how you doing?
Yeah. She was like,
knows this is a thing. We're gonna talk about it.
Yeah, and we find out there that the Exodus plan is still in motion and in more than preparation now.
Right.
But we haven't heard about it in the last few episodes. It's kind of been put on the back
Like it
burner
was
with
like
some of the other stuff
4
going on.
episodes at least, I
Yeah.
think, where that
3
just
or
kind
4
of, at
episodes,
least
yeah.
it may be more than that. I should have checked.
Yeah.
But also, so I have a question about like the distance between those episodes. So during this scene, Pete says, okay, well, Daryl's out. That complicates things.
Yep.
And it's my understanding, at least unless something has changed since the, 8 years ago I was working in a prison, you can only be in the shoe or like solitary for 14 days at a time.
Interesting.
Like, at least that's how it was for us. And then there had to be at least 1 day out before you would go back in. Then that's like a mental health thing. Like, there's only so many days, according to the state of Ohio,
Isolation.
where I live, that can happen. But there's no way it's only been 14 days since all of that went down and he got hoodwinked in the church service. There's no way. So I'm interested in what like the theory is on the time between those.
Was there no mention of he didn't say anything?
No, they just said that, well, him being out complicates things and we need to rush. Like, we need to get it done because they know that he's going to blow the whistle on it because he got screwed.
Interesting. I don't know why my brain was like just automatically filling in gaps of like, oh, it's probably been about a month. But like, that's a long period of time.
Because
unless they did. No, that's fine. Unless they did some other, like you said, 14 days out and then.
So didn't Capshaw say like 14 days in the hole to Martin when she, like, if he got caught with the scissors last episode?
I think so.
Right. So like that kind of to me confirmed, like,
it's
if you
definitely
get caught with a weapon,
yeah, that's definitely
getting 14 days. Like, yeah.
And
so
I
I'm just interested, and every state could be different.
That's what I was just about to say. I would imagine every state's got a different timeline. So.
I don't know. So I was just interested in what maybe that was considered in terms of canon, like in the writer's eyes. What's the time jump here? Yeah,
that's true. I didn't think about that because my brain is thinking it's been at least a week or two since last episode because.
Well, and we know head case and face value are like literally days apart. So those are not your typical, like, there's been a lot of time. But Malcolm says at the beginning of this episode that he's been cleansing and that Martin's not taking it well and he's been calling frequently. So that implies there's been some time.
Yeah. So that implies
between the last one and this one.
Week. Yeah.
Yeah. So like since he's kicked Danny out and Martin has screwed up his personal life, there's been some time there where he's consistently ignoring Martin.
Yeah. And we know that like even a day or two to Martin being ignored is like all hell breaks loose, the end of the world. So it could have only been a few days. So just from like the time frame and the fact that Danny's not entirely like staying away from him after what happened last time, I would assume that it's been about a week or so and they've maybe talked about that, or she's just been
or maybe the fact that he scooted her out the door wasn't as big of a deal as everyone made it out to be.
Like,
oh my god, you mean the fact that when he was in the middle of a mental breakdown he decided maybe my friend shouldn't be in the room with me? Like, moving on. I got on that soapbox last week. I'm not getting on it this week. Soapbox is firmly planted in the corner.
We have
now.
Other soapboxes for later.
That's what we do.
Yeah, when they're walking up to the crime scene, Malcolm notices the car, and that was the car that he was fixing last episode in that little scene with Jess. And so he mentions it, and Gil's like, no, you stay away, no more Whitleys around my car. So that just like had me cracking up. That had everybody cracking up on Twitter, and then JT's like, can Tarmel's be around it? And then Danny's just like, no, just.
And meanwhile, Danny's the one later that blows the cornet into a person.
Yeah.
Like, it seems anybody that's on the team that gets behind the wheel of the car, they run over people.
Let's see what happens when we put JT with it.
Yeah. He'll just have a car seat in the back and we'll be baby cruising.
Yeah.
So moving on to 720, we are at the crime scene now. We're kind of getting our whole what's the crime of the week and what's going down. And I really like this line that Malcolm says and the way that the camera works as he's saying it. So he's talking about overkill. And he says that it speaks to an impulse control disorder, the inability to integrate emotional reactions with consequences. And as he's saying this, the camera literally flips only between him and Danny the whole time. So that's another situation about like, you know, integrating your emotions with what are the consequences and all that kind of stuff. So another situation where our case of the week very much kind of fits in with what's going on with Bright personally and mentally with his family and other things. So yeah, there's like a very intentional shift of camera there. And he's actually talking to Gil. Gil was the last person to speak before he said that. So it's just wink, wink, nod, nod, nod.
Yeah.
Like the camera's like, to Danny. That's who we're talking about, folks. And in that same scene we have, and I'm loving the fact that we're throwing some Gil jokes in here, but the fact that they make the landline joke, and then like, who has a landline? Old people. Oh,
and he was just like not having it. So I apparently totally missed that in the flipping between Discord and Twitter that night. Totally missed that whole burn right there at Gil for the landline. So when I watched that yesterday, I was dying.
It makes me happy because my parents still have a landline and it drives me insane.
Yes, we have a landline at my parents' house.
Just because I am so used to like the quiet. You know, my husband and I have cell phones. They're on vibrate 99.9% of the time. So to hear a phone ring, I kind of feel like Gerald later, where I'm like, my God, turn it off. Like it's like so loud. And then my parents still have the thing where it pops up on the TV to tell you. So you're in the middle of watching something important and it's like, Billy Bob is calling. And I'm like, okay, this is like prehistoric. Can we not? At 8:03, we're still in this apartment here where the crime scene is. But there's this awesome shot where Malcolm has walked kind of across the room and he's looking out the window and he's recognizing, like, okay, this is our witness. This is the landline caller, if you will. And in that moment, so he is the closest, he's the most foreground character. And then you have Danny slightly off to the side. And then in the background behind them are JT and Gil. And it's a really cool frame to have all of our team in at once. And for once, Malcolm is like beautifully lit because it's a daylight lighting. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is the scene that they were using the daylight lamps for when Tom did the takeover for the WB. So he did a takeover. He's like, it's daylight. And then he's like, and then when you run out of daylight, you use these lamps to make it look like daylight, because he's standing in the window and they need that to be daylight. There's either that or a scene later where him and Gerald are looking out and see someone in her apartment. But it's nighttime then. So no, so it would have to be, this scene would be what they were shooting at that point when he did the takeover. So, but yeah, it's just a really cool scene. Like there was one scene in season 1 where they're all lit in the television, where like all of them are reflecting in the television, and it's just really cool when they do these like neat shots of our entire team. So I enjoy that. So at 9:55, they have seen the supposed witness cross the street, and they go across. They kind of burst into the house and realize, like, okay, he's clearly not under duress. We need to go. And I love just the theatrics of, guess we'll leave. And then they all like bounce out the door. And then I just love, like, Malcolm just comes on the corner like, hey, and he's like popping in. And so my new favorite quote, honestly, maybe of all time, is Malcolm Bright, NYPD, adjacent. It made me so happy because at first there was a decent pause and he goes NYPD and I was like, no. Ah, there it is.
There, yep.
I was like, no, when did that happen? No.
Yeah, I know, right? it's on my to-do list for stickers now.
Yes, yeah, I need that sticker. Like Malcolm Bright, NYPD, ... adjacent. Like, it's amazing. And then of course he calls him out on the antique weapons. Like, listen, bro, you ain't shooting me. He pushes the chamber out. Like,
he's very proud of his knowledge of antique weapons.
See, I thought it was going to be, because in revolvers you can see very clearly if they're loaded. So I was waiting for him to be like, no, you're not. There is nothing in the chamber of that weapon. Like, because if you look, there's nothing in it. It's empty. There are no bullets. So I was waiting for him to be like, how are you going to shoot me with magic bullets?
No bullets.
So shout out to our major guest star of the episode. So the minute this guy pops on screen, I'm like, I know this. Who is this guy? Like, I recognize his face. It's killing me. His name is Robert Joy. And I know him as the medical examiner from C.S.A. New York. He was on 165 episodes. Like, he was the Idrissa of C.S.I. NY. Which I'm a procedural crime drama, nerd. I've hit all of them, NCIS and Criminal Minds and, all those.
One of us.
Yeah, I know, one of us. So I was like, who is this guy? I know this guy. And sure enough, he popped up and I was like, there it is. And he was amazing. I thought he did a great job. I'm not 100% a quote unquote expert by any means on like agoraphobia. I would have to look all that stuff up. I think Caroline probably would have hit us with some knowledge in that department were she able to make it today. So that'll just have to be like a revisited, and we'll give her the opportunity to hit that up. But yeah, I mean, for all I know about it, I think he did a nice job. I'm sure some things are, kind of fantastical, but it's entertainment. It's never always 100% true to form. Sometimes it's get a little manipulated. So.
Yeah, and it has to serve, the plot line and, where we see it go by the end of the episode. But we do know
documentary.
Yes, but we do know that they have a legitimate technical advisor, Dr. Anger. So it's
legitimate. Just, that's not even the word. Shout out to Dr. A. Woo!
So so it's not like they're just winging it and putting their own, doing their own thing. They're doing their research, and if Dr. Anger approved it, then we're good.
Like literally, if it's good enough for him, then it's good enough for the whole freaking rest of us. Because I challenge anybody in the fandom to be like, I'm more knowledgeable. No, you're not. Just stop. Just stop. So at 11:35, I really thought it was cute that when he's afraid to talk to a bunch of people, Malcolm kind of brings up like, well, how about one detective or a detective? And shocker, breaking news, the one he had in mind happened to be Danny. Right. It wasn't going to be JT to come in and be like super aggressive with the dude that's terrified of people. So I love that Gerald immediately clocks like the reactions between the two of them, like the little hand touch. Like they deliberately put the camera on Gerald after that little hand touch brushy moment, and he's like, I am both of them. Like, okay, like, I know what's going on. Like he's a watcher of people. So as much as Bright is a profiler, this guy's probably pretty close. Yeah. Like, let's be honest. He spent 24 years watching people without having actually interacted with them other than Rosalie. And so he's pretty good at reading cues and things like that. So he's immediately like,
yeah. And he even explains to us, I don't know if it was I think it was during this discussion with the two of them, or it could have been later when he was talking to Malcolm alone again. He explains that he's spent so long watching people that he's picked up on people's patterns. He knows when something changes, when someone's not around, when something new happens in people's lives, without having to actually physically interact with any of these people. So it's not surprising.
The nosy grandma, just to, like a really intense degree compared to other people.
Yeah, so it's not surprising that that he would pick up on their behavior within minutes of seeing the two of them interact with each other. Right, and I get that too, because when I interact with someone long enough, like I can identify like patterns of behavior changes and whatnot, and then I'm like, okay, something's off, and then that triggers my anxiety and whatnot. But like, but I get it. I get the patterns of behavior and observing that.
This scene is the moment where I kind of realized that this was very much Rear Window by Hitchcock. Like it kind of felt that way a little bit, where it's like, oh, some guy across the street witnessed a murder, but it doesn't always mean it's going to go that direction. For anyone unfamiliar with Hitchcock, first of all, it's one of his best in my opinion. Jimmy Stewart plays a photographer who has hurt his leg. He's like very much laid up and cannot leave his apartment. And he happens to live in an apartment that is like a back apartment on a square. So there are 4 other apartment buildings around him, and he just decides he's a photographer. He's going to people watch. So he's looking through the lens and kind of seeing what people are doing, and witnesses a murder. And actually in the 2000s-ish, when I was working in a movie theater, they did a remake of this with Shia LaBeouf called Disturbia, which is very similar. So like a murder's witness, the person finds out you witnessed the murder, and that person who can't leave the house or is laid up or whatever is trying to protect themselves from being attacked. So that definitely gave me, this scene was like, oh, okay, we are going full like Rear Window, and we're kind of taking it in that direction. So yay, Hitchcock. The only kind of creepy I will ever watch because it's so blatantly not realistic from the time period. It doesn't scare me as much. Although the birds, screw the birds. Have you ever seen this movie?
No.
All it is flocks of birds attacking people. And when I was little, it made it to the point where when birds flew south for the winter, I would like run indoors when I saw giant flocks of birds because I thought they were going to dive bomb me and try to peck my eyes out.
Oh, God.
So yeah, there's a little insight into my childhood, everyone.
Welcome to C.S.A. We reveal a lot.
Yeah, here we go. In this scene too, I also adore the fact that Malcolm does this really cute little grin to Danny, like a proud grin when Gerald was like, "Oh yeah, it's a red Porsche." She was like, "Do you want the license plate?" And Malcolm just goes, like he's like he's very excited that he like just giving them all the intel immediately. It was really cute.
Yeah. This little scene was before the little spat in the conference room between Malcolm and Danny. So rewatching this, I already knew what the mindset she was kind of in regarding, this guy who all they know right now is like a creeper. And it was nice to see her tone kind of change throughout this little discussion. I wrote the word accusatory, but that's not necessarily the word I was looking for. It's probably not the best word, but it was just a difference in tone change. She kind of was like short with him when she was saying certain things, and then by the end when he is able to give them more information quickly, she kind of softens a little bit and throughout questioning him, especially by the time he can give them the type of car and the license plate. So
right, like this guy's actually valuable. If you think he's slightly off, that's one thing, but he is giving you valuable information
that you can run. So that was nice to see that, like a noticeable tone change.
So when we move into the conference room, at 4:50, I absolutely adore Malcolm's little like side eye shade about like he rounded up, he wasn't cum laude, like just absolute like rounding up a 3.49 douchebag. Like anytime he gives a little bit of snark about his intellect or someone else's intellect, it makes me very happy. And so let's move into this discussion. So I have a couple points here I want to talk about. First of all, I really did enjoy that, like, despite the kind of budding feelings and that like kind of early, I want them to like me feel sometimes that happens as you're kind of crushing, for lack of a better term, on someone. I love that in this scene, both of them are just absolutely like, I'm going to stand up for what I think in this situation. And if you get annoyed like this, I want to tell you what I think. So I love that there's still like that individualism instead of like, I'm going to lose my whole identity because I don't want to accidentally annoy the person I'm crushing on.
Yep.
So that I loved. And I also liked from Malcolm's standpoint, like this is very much like kind of standing up for someone who is different. Who is, he's defending his intellect despite an anxiety issue. Gee, who could that possibly sound familiar to? Like, geez, come on. So he's essentially kind of defending himself a little bit. Like, listen, people that don't look or supposedly have, quote, normal lives, like getting up in the middle of the night in your restraints with your mouth guard shrieking at the top of your lungs, it doesn't mean that they are not, valuable, that they don't have intellect, that they don't whatever. And so that leads me to like, I'm just calling it like the battle of the week, because there's always, it seems like this fandom, like we kind of did it early on with the JT stuff, right? So there was always something to bitch about the first couple weeks with what was going on with the racism stuff. And now it seems like these past 2 or 3 episodes, like we're not 15 minutes after an episode has finished airing and somebody is just up in arms, something abusive has happened one way or the other, blah blah effity blah. I'm sorry, I'm so over it. Like,
I love it. I don't blame you.
First of all, dead on, this is a fictional entertainment program. Like, it is not a documentary about people's mental health issues. Now, it does a great job of portraying that and about how people can work through it, and they should not be abnormalized in any way. But my God, it is entertainment. Do you think anyone in the world sat back in the 80s and like analyzed the mental health and attitudes of all the members of Dallas or Dynasty? Like, why do people rip this apart? Like, this is one of the things I hate about the internet. Like, I'm all about being critical. My God, we analyze this show.
We spend an hour and a half
This
each
is
week.
what we do. But at the same time, like, I mean, I put the tweet up. I'm like, all of these characters are human beings with flaws.
Mm-hmm.
They all make mistakes and could grow and could learn and could do things. And one off comment does not make them an asshole. Like, no one said a thing about Gil and JT being like, well, there's no way we can use this guy as a witness. Look at him. I mean, they said the same thing. They just didn't say the phrase messed up.
Yeah.
And everybody jumped on that phrase. Like, look, Gil and JT said the same thing. Like, and I feel like there's kind of a tribe of Danny haters out there that like to just jump on any little thing when it's like, look, I love Danny. I love Malcolm to pieces. But Danny hasn't chopped off a dude's hand. Danny hasn't threatened to shoot himself up with a lethal chemical compound.
Yes.
Danny did not stab his father.
Yeah.
Like of all the, like, you're just finding little things to nitpick. And you know what? People are human. And I love that our writers are writing them as flawed and they can learn things. And she does throughout the rest of this episode. She learns like, okay, this guy is clearly, I misjudged him, whatever. But it's just stop. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Stop.
Yeah, that's my biggest thing about this whole scene is, like I said to you guys, you know, hearing those words come out of her mouth while we were watching live, I was like, you know, made me feel uncomfortable. But again, like we talked about last episode, these writers are making us feel things and react to things and think about things and whatnot. So that's good. So that, but yeah, so that was a little like, why is she saying that? Because now Malcolm was gonna feel like, okay, I messed up too because I have these mental health issues. So that was a little, you know, a little rough. But my whole point with this scene that I like is that I just like want people to understand is, look, these people represent real people in society, and you know, a lot of people in the fandom already, you know, identify with a lot of the characters, and this scene is a way to not only create a platform for Danny or other characters to jump off of and grow, but it's also a way to educate our audience, because if Danny says something and someone realizes, whoa, I think the same way, then, like, you know, I think the same thing. Like when I think of people with mental illness, well, you're messed up and you're, you know, you're cursed, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. Then that's a way to educate the audience and be like, hey, look, this isn't cool. This statement came from a place of ignorance or misunderstanding or bias and things like that. Here's where we go from here. And my biggest piece of evidence with that is, like, we saw how she reacted to Gil bringing him to the team in the pilot. She was like, nope, no way. Both her and JT weren't cool with it, especially when she knew that he was Martin's, the surgeon's son. The both of them were like freaking out. And then, like, by the second or third episode, they loved the guy. I mean, for God's sakes, we had the second episode where he got bit by the snake and Danny's like, you know, freaking out over him and as he's, you know, passing out. So, and then, you know, and then it, like, you know, it leads to my favorite scene in the trip. You know, that's only 5 episodes in, and she tells him, like, I always thought we were both so different. And so we see that growth of, you know, how she thinks about someone with a mental.
I just feel like that there's like a band of people that only pick up on things for Danny. Because let's be honest, how many like elitist phrases has Jess said based on we have money and they don't? Like Jess had said multiple, like, oh, those people, or like, oh, I can't imagine you're going to be in this neighborhood. Like, she's made comments frequently about like, we have money and the lower people are scary. Like, and no one jumps on that. Like, no one has been like, oh my God, she's such a 1%er. You know, like, no one has gone on that rant. And it's literally because it's Danny. Like, that's all it is. And quite frankly, like, and I'm not like just pro Danny. Like, I'm not pro Danny and anti Adrisa. Like, stop jumping, just stop finding BS to bitch about. Quite frankly, like, if you don't like the show, then don't like the show. But my goodness.
Yeah. And with people calling that scene, what she said to him, abusive, I was like, look, if you're gonna call her abusive, which, newsflash, it's not. Hello, if you heard from us last week, you know why we feel that way. But if you're going to call her that, then call Martin and Jess and Ainsley abusive, because I've been in romantic and family relationships that are abusive, and we've seen plenty of that evidence.
And a lot of the people that are just dogging Danny are the ones that are like, oh yeah, Martin's my murder daddy. And like, hello, like if you're gonna spread that phrase around, like whatever, ship who you want, be attracted to who you want, but let's not pretend like Martin isn't the most manipulative dude on the entire show. Like, we'll get to some more stuff there later, but
off the end of this episode.
Yeah, so I'm like, it's definitely not equal opportunity gripe. It's anything they can to jump down Danny's throat.
Yep.
So whatever.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move along because I could gripe about that for quite a while.
I know. We will step off our soapboxes.
Seriously. At 1712, I made this reference and not a lot of people will get it, but again, I used to work in a movie theater, so I made the reference of like Friar Pete going full Willard. If you've ever seen the 2003 movie with Crispin Glover, it's this dude that has like this freakish obsession with rats. And so all I could think of was that movie, because I had to continually see a preview in the lobby of the movie theater with all these rats, and I was like, oh no, thank you. And that's just the full effect there. But there are some other references to this. So Jess, hit us with these facts.
Yeah. So and right before that, regarding the rats, we'll have to go find it and tweet it after from the podcast account. I'm losing my words. Bellamy had put up a post either yesterday or the day before on Instagram about the rats, and if you know anything about her, she is an animal lover like me and like Caroline, so she put up a whole bunch of pictures of the rats and her just like holding them and just like they're so cute. It's the cutest Instagram post in the world. And she loved.
She said something about how like they called them marshmallows on set or something.
Yes, they had to call them marshmallows on set because apparently, according to her, Catherine was absolutely terrified of the rats, and she didn't even want to hear people talk about them, so they called them marshmallows.
I love that that's what they picked, because we call characters marshmallows so often. Like, it's beautiful. Goodness. I love it.
Yes, I guarantee you it was Bellamy that gave him like that nickname.
For sure.
So Capshaw follows Pete. We see a little earlier, before some other scenes that we just talked about, that she sees him go through a door that he shouldn't be going through because it's card accessible. So she follows him, and we get to this point, and we see him in like really dark, like it says the electrical room, so it's really dark. There's a bunch of rats all over the place. So she's sneaking around following him, and we see Friar Pete get down to the rats, and he picks up one of them, and he says, you tasted the fruit of the tree of knowledge, or when it comes from scripture, it's sometimes called the tree of good and evil. So yeah, he says, you tasted the fruit of the tree of knowledge, didn't you? Only now do you realize it's poison. So that's a biblical reference. So obviously I'm going to mention something about it, even though it really doesn't have any significance to this episode. It just goes along with that whole friar component to who Pete is.
Well, and they have to show us, like, this is rat poison. Look what rat poison does.
Look what rat poison does.
So later, when a bunch of people ingest it, it's super horrible.
Yes, we have to set that up. So yeah, so that's just from the for those who don't know, that is a reference to a very early portion of scripture in the book of Genesis, which is the first book in the Bible, and that refers to the Garden of Eden. And the fruit that was on the tree, that one tree in the garden that Adam and Eve were told, you can have everything except for this one tree, do not touch it, do not eat it. But they were tempted by Satan, or the serpent. And essentially that fruit gets eaten, and it starts this whole, the whole downfall of man and original sin and all this other stuff. And it destroyed the utopia that God had created. So the fruit tasted good, but it was actually poison because it created a lot of problems.
Yep.
So that brings us to the rat poison that he's, intertwining with this biblical reference. So rat poison attracts them, and it's actually the poison is actually mixed with bait, because food bait, because it's odorless and tasteless. And the poison is actually a commonly used drug in the healthcare industry. So it's called warfarin or Coumadin, and it's a blood thinner, which it doesn't thin your blood, but it's an anticoagulant, and we actually hear Martin say that later in the episode. In large doses, because it keeps your blood from clotting, which you don't want it to do in your body, it causes internal bleeding. So when the rats eat warfarin or Coumadin, they eat this, and because they're so much smaller than humans, it doesn't take a huge dose. There's not there's a specific dose, but it's it's a milligram of this per like kilogram of their body weight over the course of about 6 days before it becomes lethal enough to kill them. So they keep coming back and eating it in doses and whatnot. Nice. And that causes them to just bleed internally and eventually die. So it's
die off.
I don't know how painful it is or how inhumane it would be considered, but it's far better than sticky traps because they get stuck in those and then they just like
starve to death.
They starve to death, and that not only harms them, but people throw them out, and then birds and other wildlife get stuck in them, and it's horrendous. So it's a little bit better than that. And so it's not instant. We see Friar Pete pick up a rat, and I didn't go back to really watch it, but I don't know if that rat was already dead or if it was like insinuating, oh, you just ate this and now it's dead in his hand. So I was like, it's not an instant poison kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's that. Oh, and then I found out that this is actually not used as widely anymore because it was used so much that, sorry, I keep hiccuping. Rat populations are actually becoming really resistant to this, so they're starting to find
don't need your rat
poison. I know, right? They're starting to find other drugs and poisons and whatnot that actually work a lot better.
Cool. I mean, not cool, but cool. So at the end of the scene, I did my best on our C.S.A. Twitter account to get an answer before the show happened, but I get it. They're doing things. They're on hiatus at this point, so they're spending time with family and chilling out. So I tried to hit up Eileen and Alexis with a question because we have another situation where the dialogue in the audio does not match the lips of the actor. So this happened once in season 1 when I was doing write-ups, and Caroline and I just lost our minds about it and went like hardcore deep diving into it.
That was great.
So this time, unfortunately, so the line that he speaks is when Capshaw is on the phone, and he says the line, "Hang up the phone." And it was very obvious to me that was ADR'd because, again, you can not hear background noise and suddenly it's like a really clear, crisp audio. And that's how you know that was done in post in ADR when it's like perfectly sounding through a microphone, like those kind of, because he's not on the set right now when he says it. So he says hang up the phone, but his lips are in no way moving for those words whatsoever. Unfortunately, Capshaw's in the foreground and he is blurred in the background. So unlike the one from season 1 where you can see Malcolm's mouth plain as day, you can't with him. So Carol looked at it and she thinks there's a chance that there was still like a PH sound, like the phone sound, but it's really hard to tell when you can't watch their lips and tongue. When she's an SLP, that's kind of what she needs. So we're unsure. I put feelers out to the writers. We'll get back to you if they ever get back to me, but I put feelers out a long time ago for the first one and everyone just went, oh, it's been 100 years. I have no idea what that script was supposed to say. And I'm like, damn. But yeah, so it's there at 1806 if you want to see it. At 1920, I just put, as much as I love my Danny and Malcolm head case interrogation moments, Malcolm and Gil moments in the interrogation room just rock my socks. Yes. Like they're killing it. And the camera angles are really cool in this one too. Malcolm ends up behind them. And then when we're looking at Gil, you can see Malcolm in the reflection of the window or the mirror and still see Gil when they're talking to them. So there's some really cool camera angles that work in there. I really appreciated this actor that played both, spoiler alert, Felix and Clayton, because in this moment, Gil says, an eyewitness saw a man fitting your description kill Rosalie. We later learn when, but you can see the actor do this like oh crap. Well, there's no way, blah blah blah. Like, like, so you see him process, it was my brother. Like, you see him immediately process, like, the only one that looks like me is the one that looks like me. And so that was kind of a cool moment. Like, okay, and I'm sure it was scripted, whatever, but it was just really neat.
Yeah, and one of the things, actually, that one of my friends that I got into the show, he mentioned when he was watching the episode yesterday for the first time, that the micro expressions are noticeable, but they're short enough to be believable. And that's the thing about micro expressions, is for them to be real. When we talk about those as, people who are profilers, the real micro expressions cannot be done on cue. You see this a lot in interrogations of criminals, here, but in, real life footage from that we have in cases and whatnot. There's people who try to look surprised or confused, and, when they're lying, and micro expressions are a fraction of a second. Whereas if you think about it and you're trying to have a micro expression, you're going to overkill it or oversell it, essentially, and that's
and they're not something that you can consciously do.
Yeah,
like, there's something that is just a natural reaction.
It's just a natural reaction. So it's nice to see that, like, they're able to do these quickly, where they're noticeable, because that's the whole point. They're supposed to be noticeable, but they're not overdone to look weird and
as good as they're going to be when you're acting and it's not reality.
Yes, that's something I really enjoyed.
Yeah. At 2011, we have Gerald and Malcolm playing chess, which for many of us was like a moment we shall never forget. First of all, I adored that he straight up just called him out, and he's like, oh, so are we just not telling Danny how we feel? Gerald said that. And of course, Malcolm deflects, like, there's nothing to tell, blah, blah, blah. So I assumed kind of that was how this was going to go. Like, there's nothing to tell. But then Malcolm confirms his feelings.
Yep. He buckles quickly.
Brett, we need like fireworks, confetti, or some type of, effect over this right now. Okay, so I tried my best to keep my Brightwell in check, but in this episode, it just ain't gonna happen. I'm sorry to tell you. So he finally admits it, and then he does the ever classic trope of, and I'll never tell her for her own safety. I'm like, son of a bitch. Yep. But I'm really like, so I have a legitimate question here, other than me fangirling and being like, oh my God, sweet. Like, what exactly is the safety from? Is it from hurting her, like from himself?
Yeah.
So like I was like, okay, odds are it's from the fact that like she might learn about what happened with Endicott, it would hurt her emotionally, blah blah blah. I'm like, is it himself? Is it the secret about Endicott? Is it Martin? Is it like, I'm very interested in his brain. What is the for her safety?
I think it's like everything about his life. Kind of like, everything I touch falls apart kind of trope. Just not wanting to, he knows he has trauma. He knows he has, he knows he's got issues to deal with. He's said it multiple times. He said it to JT at some point. Like, I know I say I'm fine, but I'm not. Like, I'm usually lying.
Whenever I say that, I'm lying.
Yeah. So like, he doesn't say it that often. Like, he doesn't acknowledge it that often, but he has acknowledged that, like, hey, I got stuff going on. So for someone who, also has trauma from certain things, I get there's a lot here, and I don't want to hurt someone I want this person, but I don't want to hurt someone by like bringing them into my life. And because when you're in a relationship, like, a good relationship, like, has that, there's no wall between the two of you kind of thing.
And that's the beauty of how they have built this. Like, she is not coming in blind by any means whatsoever.
No, she's not.
So like, they've deliberately, since literally episode 2, she's cuffing him into his restraints. He tackles her in episode 1. Like, they're talking about, she revealed past drug use, this and that. Like, they are definitely building a good foundation of, she's not getting hoodwinked about if they were to become official. Like, she knows full well what she's getting into. She's met Martin. She knows what Jess is like. She knows Malcolm's issues. So there is no like, oh, guess what? I shackle myself to the bed at night and take a laundry list of medications. And, like she knows, she's been there. And that says something. I like that. I like that that's a thing.
Yeah. And it's just that added layer of, well, Ainsley's killed somebody now, not just my father. And I helped cover it up.
Yeah, I was very complicit in the, stuffing of body parts into places they should not have been.
Yeah.
So at 2419, we have Martin and Capshaw in his cell, having the whole, he knows, Friar Pete knows what we did, which I'm a little confused as to why she's all shocked at this moment. Like, oh my God, Friar Pete knows. You knew that. He was singing you creepy hymns last episode. Like, it's not a shock that he knows.
Yeah.
Why didn't you have that conversation with Martin before?
Yeah, and
like, by the way, Pete knows.
Yeah, and she like even says that like back to the scene with the rats and her calling, trying to call security on the phone. He says something and she's like, what are you talking about? And, in a cryptic way, says, I know what you did. And I was like, you already knew that he knows what you did.
Yeah, like none of this is breaking news. You
so
sprinted out of the room while he sang a creepy hymn to
did you erase that from your memory?
Yeah,
or what?
For sure.
Yeah.
But what caught me the most in this particular scene between the two of them is the phrase that Martin says, like, I'll get it all handled, even Pete.
Yep.
And I'm going to talk about by the nature of this, I kind of have to talk about the preview now for this to make sense. So if you don't like to hear stuff about the preview, maybe like skip ahead of a minute or two. I don't know. So in the preview, both American and Canadian, we have a situation where you think perhaps it might be Martin, whatever. They're hunting down these escapees. And there's a TAC team on a radio and they say like, okay, there's a man down. Or if you're in the Canadian promo, they said target down. I could talk for hours about that. I'll do that later. But you see Gil and Malcolm together and Malcolm wants to know who's down. Who is it? Like phrases about like who's on the ground or who is it that's down. And then you see Malcolm sprinting, of course, no tactical gear, no weapon, just running blindly into this scene where there's active gunfire. And then it's kind of just left to be like, oh my God, who is it? I think the American promo very much pushed the possibility of Danny being the person by saying
we didn't hear the word target. We didn't hear the word target.
Whereas target in the Canadian one, to me, makes it sound like it's one of the people they were chasing. You don't say target down if it's a member of your team. If it's a member of your team, that's not how that works. So anyway, that aside, I personally believe that means this is Pete. Because I think Pete could bust Capshaw even from outside. He could cause her to lose her job if he wanted to be manipulative and whatever.
Which, let's be honest, she's gonna lose it anyway.
True. But like, I'm just saying, I think that is Martin's revenge on Pete for trying to blackmail Capshaw.
True. Yeah, and we thought this was Martin. We were all thinking this was Martin until you had realized what he said in this scene. When you rewatched.
And I had some theories last night, like, okay, I feel like this is a big red herring and that it's going to be one of the other escapees. And then I mistakenly named Daryl instead of one of the escapees, but whatever. I was a little hyper. So I think that I think it's going to be Pete. That's my prediction.
Interesting.
Because I think he's going to set him up for sure, like to give away his location if possible and then get him taken down so he is permanently silenced in the Capshaw department.
Yes, because if we know anything about Martin, he likes to set people up to
fail
and take the fall for something else and take the attention off of him.
So at 28:20, we have Jess just roaming around the bowels of Claremont. And again, as a previous prison worker, I just have to call bullshit. Like, at no point do you ever leave an outside guest on their own.
Yeah.
That never ever happens. Even in minimum security, like they are escorted in, they are watched, and then they are escorted out. So I get, again, for plot device purposes, we need this, but it would never ever be a scenario where Mr. David and this other guy are like, Martin, we have an emergency, and they just roll out with him and leave her there and go, see yourself to the door, Jess, and then they're done. Yeah. Yep. No, does not happen.
We got just before that, we got Capshaw and Jess face to face. So that was a. That was a funny
just
scene there.
loved that they confirmed that we are not getting jealous Jess about this for me.
Yes.
Because I thought they were going to go down that road, and I was like, please God,
But
give her
they
the
did
growth
not.
to not need that.
Yeah.
And then I appreciated the like, oh, I really hope there's something wrong with him.
Yes.
I enjoyed that a lot. But then to balance it, we also have the like, leave him in one piece for me from Capshaw. So I'm like, oh,
I had a lot of
giveth and the Lord taketh away.
I had in this for this entire singing even stuff, you know, before Jess walks in where they're all emotional and I just had a lot of capital letters that were ew, stop right now. It's just I have an entire
to clarify, I have nothing
of my
against
paper.
Capshaw the character, and I have nothing against Martin the character.
No, it's when you put them in the same room together.
Yeah. So Martin the character I really enjoy. Like, I mean, you need that foil, and Michael is just genius in the part. I am just not here for him as the romantic lead. That not Michael, the character Martin as the romantic lead. Like, nope.
Or the innuendos.
Yeah.
Like
agreed. Agreed. So we're in the infirmary now. All vomity, bloody hell has broken loose. It is not a place I would be, and this just confirmed one of the many reasons why I'm not fit for healthcare. So God bless Carrie and Caro and all you heroes out there doing that business. We need you. We love you. God bless you, but not for me.
Nope.
At all. In fact, I deliberately didn't pick early childhood education because I didn't want the possibility of some little kid in my class being like, I don't feel good. Like,
nope.
So God bless him. But so crap has hit the fan. I loved at 30:22 the absolute awesomeness of the slow-mo shot of the belt dropping the restraint off of.
I had mentioned that.
It was such a cool shot. And then I loved how they do it hits the ground and it's just boom. Like, it's the weight of the fact that you have let this man go. Like, you have given him what we have waited for, and we deserve that. Like, this is the first time he has been unrestrained like this, and it's an epic moment. Like, it is the moment he has been waiting for since the beginning of season 1, and now it's like da-na-na, and it has occurred. So I love that we went full slow-mo on it, and then they just click right back into regular. It wasn't really long, it wasn't super intense, but it was a very cool editing shot to be like dun dun dun.
Yep.
So she gives him a gold card. We learned from previous episodes, like that is like, oh, like it's the all access pass card. Yeah. So like she just hands him, you know, the keys to the castle. Like, here you go. And then gasp, is shocked when this dude takes all of 0.4 seconds to go, peace, and leave. And again, breaking news. Oh, it's not about you. It's just about Flame and blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't want to hear anything about how he really felt for her and how he really was in love with her. Like, he is manipulative. He is a predatory psychopath. This is Predatory Psychopath 101, first chapter of the textbook, as Malcolm says. Like, he played you like a gorgeous Stradivarius fiddle, honey. Like, you got played.
And she's, you know, standing there at the door freaking out. And she even says at one point, I believed you. And I was like,
that's your fault, boo. Like, that is all on you.
Yeah, like she realizes it right there.
I'm really interested now if these future scenes of her, like we've seen behind the scenes pictures of like her meeting Malcolm and stuff like that. Like, is this in defense of Martin, or is this kill him? I'm going to help you find him. Like, I'm really interested in if she's still going to be like protecting and playing the game, or if she's ready to be a woman scorned and get some vengeance now. So I'm really intrigued. At 33:44, all I wrote was, Jess, sweetie, you ain't gonna shoulder through a metal door.
Yes.
Like, I just like, duh. A metal door.
Yep.
How are we shocked by this? Like, come on, like, Jess, sweetie.
Yeah, that's I also love the fact that that's her first choice and then calls Gil. rather than like,
I'm just, Jess is in what we later see are like 8-inch tiny ass stiletto heels.
Yes.
And probably what is a $4,000 outfit, and probably doesn't have a callus on her hand or has not done any form of exercise in many a day. And she's just, I got this. Donk. I'm like,
tries
no,
to
sweet pea,
shoulder.
you really don't.
Through a door in a prison. All right.
Yeah,
okay.
a metal door in a prison that is like security locked that would require a badge. Yeah, sure.
Gonna feel that
JT
later.
Tarmel that. Yeah. So I laugh so hard. At 34:26, I wrote protective. I'm on my way. Gil is giving me tingly feels. It was giving me some tingly feels for sure. Like, there was something about the tone of voice and like, I'm coming, baby. I was like, get it, Gil.
Yep. And we find out by that point, we find out that at the same time, Gil and Danny are both running to go save their, I'm going to use the word partner and with multiple meanings at the moment. So they're both running. They're both running off to. They're both running off to go save their partner in two different spots at the at the same time. So I was just like, yay.
Which, to clarify, there was, like you said, some confusion. Like, it seems pretty obvious to me that like Gil got dropped off at Claremont.
Yeah. So Lou,
or he took an actual like cruiser to Claremont. Like, I mean, one way or the other, they split.
Yeah, they were. We see
Danny got to drive the Cornet.
Yeah, we see him pull his keys out of his desk right before Jess calls him. So clearly he was, gonna go grab his car. And Lou tweeted earlier today, actually, and I shared it in our chat, that once again, I don't have the exact tweet in front of me, but he tweeted the fact that he was with Danny at the time, and then when they got the call about both of them, it was he gave her the keys, and it was you go and I'll go with the rest of the unis, because he was, it wasn't just him showing up to Claremont. Clearly there's a problem and they need backup. So that's what it was.
You're rocking some scissors, man.
I am. I don't know what I'm doing. You want me to read
you? Look a little stabby. I'm not gonna lie.
I am fidgeting right now, and there's some scissors in the.
It's cool. I was stabbing my eyeball earlier because I had so much crap in it. But yeah, no, I just look up and you're like, I'm like, what was that?
Yeah, I'm sitting here fidgeting with them at the moment because they're in front of me, and I was just like going like this, like back.
I know, I saw. It's all good.
Away.
At 34:58, we have Malcolm and Gerald are hiding in the closet because Felix has showed up, and he's there. And I just love, we had kind of multiple parallels here, like the lighting and all that is very, very reminiscent of Silent Night when we see what John Watkins went through. And it's reminiscent of Alma Mater when we get flashbacks of Malcolm stuck in that janitor's closet. And the lighting is just gorgeous.
Yep.
Like, it's coming through like the slats and it's just striping his face. It's a really beautiful shot, like just strictly from camera angles and lighting perspective. Another thing I'm going to call BS on is that Felix is searching this whole house looking for a man, and he's just going to walk by a closet and not check it. Because if I was hiding, guess where I'd hide? In a closet. So he literally is talking. I'm coming for you, old man. Closet. Man,
goes for that. The bathroom.
Let's go to the open bedroom. Yeah, like, come on, guys. Like, that's a little bit much. Which leads us into kind of the ending, and the ending is epic in scale, in my opinion, and I have multiple things that we're going to hit on this. I'm sure
so many things going on at once.
Yes. So my first thing is that, like, the fact that we have these three juxtaposed scenes, and they're all kind of reminiscent of escape. Okay. So you have the escape of the trio happening at Claremont. You have Jess escaping that scary situation with Daryl, which, yes, I kind of just skimmed over the fact that she sticks a stiletto through his ear.
Yeah,
like,
that
was awesome.
That was quite yeah.
So you have those two scenes, and then you also have Malcolm and Gerald trying to escape. So while this is, montaging to a song that may very well be my new favorite music cue of this entire show in terms of real song music cue, we focus first, as this song starts, you have Malcolm and Gerald running out of the building. And it's the first time that Gerald kind of, gets out for 24 years. And I love that they have him like pause and just, oh my God, I'm outside, which also adds a little bit of anticipation. That's nice. And then we are in Claremont, and you see our three guys, you know, trying to escape, and just it's biblical punapalooza. Like everything they say, like they know, very Christ-like. Oh, you tried to, like, and this is another example where you see him being pissy with Pete because of what he did to Capshaw. Like, so he was like, oh, you blackmailed Capshaw. That's very Christ-like. Okay. But you just screwed Capshaw over, like, massively, Martin. Like, who are you to point fingers at someone else when you screwed her over way worse than Pete was ever going to screw her over? Like, you made, anyway, I'm done. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to move on. Which leads us to phrases like Judas and Pharaoh's army. So let's talk about that stuff, Jess.
Yeah, so I didn't really go off on those references, but the one thing that got me with the use of that was so Martin calls Pete out on blackmailing Capshaw, or, well, you know, hanging that over her head, that he has the ability to blackmail her, essentially. And then Pete is the one that calls Martin Judas. Okay, yes, that does apply, like, because like what he did to Daryl and whatnot. But when it comes to that whole reference, Judas is the one who gave Jesus away, as, you know, to the soldiers, as, you know, this is your criminal, this is the person you want to take and kill. But the one who could blackmail Capshaw is calling Martin Judas. So
yeah.
So, you know, not a big deal, but just, you know, with me, you know, the whole biblical thing, like, that doesn't match up. Right, I did not hear the mention of Pharaoh's army.
So, so when they're totally like, did not hear that. The three of them are like up against the wall, hiding from the guards. And he whispers, he's like, something like Pharaoh's army approaches or something like that, as they're running by them and they're hiding behind this little grate. So I mean, I'm from the Bible Belt. I was raised in that stuff. I know all the references. So I was like, okay, I got you. I get it. I really enjoy Jess's reaction to Willie. It's just, it's so funny when people are like, she's just like, holy Christ, what is going on here? Like, and breaking news, stilettos are deadly. To me, they're deadly in the sense that I would kill myself when trying to walk in them. In Jess's sense, they're deadly in the fact that we're just going to shove them through someone's ear.
Yeah. So
and Malcolm, they were very significantly far into the ear. Like, I want to know, how was brain not reached? Like, did they angle down? Like, if it was that far into his ear, I feel like he would not be screaming. He would be on the ground. Like, as in,
that's something I was curious about. So Malcolm has a thing for, like, chopping off body parts, especially hands, and Jess has a thing for causing damage with shoes. Because when she had those shoes up in front of her, because Gil told her to find something to defend herself with, my brain just went back to, oh God, what's she gonna do with those shoes? Because the last time we saw them was she was smashing them through Malcolm's TV.
R.I.P. the magical appearing and disappearing television in Malcolm's living room.
So yeah, that other thing, so it's not confirmed, but she may or may not have killed a person.
I'm really intrigued if we get any answer to that, because then that literally means all the Whitleys are either a murderer or which, again, some people say self-defense. Like, okay, it totally was, but at the end of the day, you still killed someone. Like, someone has died. I'm not saying I wouldn't have done the same thing. I wouldn't. I would have had flip-flops on. I would have had to beat him to death. But
like, definitely not the same level as what Ainsley did.
Yes, not by any means the surgeon or Ainsley. No. But I mean, that means all of the Whitley family have either killed someone or complicit and in dismemberment of the killing of someone. So at 38:21, Felix is looking for them. They have decided they're going to attempt to kind of escape and get downstairs, them being Gerald and Malcolm. And all of a sudden, like, a phone goes off. You hear like the buzziness. And I'm really intrigued. Did Malcolm deliberately lay the phone there? Or was it just like the phone's gone and it happened to be that Martin was calling? Because he has it later. So to me, it implies like he left it there and then he went back to get it. Like, because he assumes his dad's going to call every 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, I know. Right? Yeah, that's what I
feel like it was deliberate. Yeah.
Yeah. as, you know, as bait for a distraction, because they knew that they were kind of cornered and couldn't, you know, run out of the closet with him, you know, in the hallway or in the next room over.
Right.
So it was just lucky that Martin was calling again.
So I really like that multiple times during this escape, like Gerald, obviously he knows his house, but he knows his house in a way that probably the average person might not, because he literally never leaves it. So there are multiple times where like Malcolm's ready to kind of go sneak. He's like, nope. And then like, you know, he's come around this other back way that Gerald knows about. And it was just a cool little effect. Like, listen, like this is my lair. I know it from top to bottom. Which leads me to they finally start to run, right? They're escaping out of the house. And the song starts, and I'm assuming this is the way to pronounce it. Honestly, they are so like, this band is kind of so off the grid. They have 2 music videos that you have to search a lot of places to find. Finding this actual song, it's not on Apple, it's not on Spotify, it's not on iTunes. Like, you have to search some places to get to it. And it just happened to show up now because one of the YouTube people makes playlists of things on Prodigal Son. So now it's at least on YouTube.
Yeah.
By a band I'm assuming is pronounced Symfera. It's Symfera. And it's called 11/8 or 11/8, like the date. I don't know. It's 11.
I don't know. I took it as a
8.
date. Yeah, I took it as a date.
I took it as 11/8 because the song has a weird time signature.
Huh?
Like when you listen to it, and there are things like, you know, like I'm trying to think now of like 5/2 time or like 6/4. And if you don't, you know this, but if other people don't know,
really
it's a very weird time signature without a consistent beat.
Yes.
So if you're the like tap your foot person, this is not a song that you tap your foot to because it's not consistent. If you're familiar with Rush, the song YYZ is like that. The rock band Rush from Canada, they do a lot of like kind of weird time signatures. So I took it as that, like it's a funky time signature for the song. But I could be wrong, and I don't know. I can't find any information on these people because they're so off the grid. Long story short, it's another song that I feel like maybe the lyrics were not quite so important as the actual beat of the music. It's kind of got some just interesting. There's a line that says like, "Hey, have I lost my way?" There's a line that says like, "Penny for your thoughts or a pound for your flesh." So there's some things that are, and then there's one that says, "No, not a bit more, but not a bit less." So there's some things that you could, if you wanted to get really symbolic and poetic and lyric-y, combine it to. But for me, the song is just the ambiance of it, like this beat that it provides, the way they play it, the way that throughout this song, they use slow motion in and out of times to show, like, you know, people escaping, or the fact that Malcolm and Gerald are trying to get across the street in time. And there's always some slow-mo involved in and out as they go. The beat is, I mean, I'm sorry, this song bumps in a car.
It does.
Like, I was blasting this on my way home from work today, and it was just all the feels. I really enjoyed it. But the way that they use real-time speed versus slow motion along with the song is really cool as well. And then we have 4008, which I called, again, you're gonna have to bleep me, the Danny motherfucking Powell. Like, homegirl just walks up and full on clobbers a man with the cornet.
Danny with the car.
Yes. And afterwards, Malcolm might as well be the heart eye emoji. Like,
Jaw
my girl, like, that is just looking at her with the loveliest of eyes. And even Gerald calls him out again. Like, I see why you like her, man. Like, she's pretty rocking. I appreciate this girl.
Yeah, I love the shot right after she hits him. She like immediately gets out of the car, and it's just, you know, a revolving shot around him, and at the low angle from when she's standing over him.
So we've talked before, like, low angle shots are for your heroes. Low angle shots make them look large, make them look empowered, and sometimes scary. If it's like a bad guy, could be like rah. But for her, like, she gets out of that car in her leather and her boots, gun drawn, having taken this dude down, and it's just like,
hell yeah,
as she comes out. And all of us are Malcolm in that moment. We're just like, and you're in love, and you're staring at her, and she's a badass. Like, let's be honest, like, she's sometimes,
that's exactly what I wrote. Badass Danny.
Cops where it's like, oh, you know, can they really hold their own, or could they really be a female firefighter, blah blah blah, and carry a body? But like Danny has shown us, like she took down a nightingale. Like she's not here to be messed with. Like she may have those gorgeous curls, but she ain't afraid to, you know, kick ass and take names if necessary.
Yeah.
So leading into that, we have 3136, which is this little convo between Gerald and Malcolm, where, you know, Gerald has come outside. I love the joke that like, oh, it smells like garbage, because I've been to NYC multiple times. It pretty much does smell like garbage consistently. There's nothing you can do about it when you're in a city that big with that many people.
Is that what we have?
Not the sound of music, wide open, fresh air spaces. Like that is not what it is.
Is that what we have to look forward to in July?
Really, like the thing is, and there's so much of like the air that comes up from like the subway and the sewers and stuff like that. Like it, unless you're on top of a building or out maybe in like one of the larger parks, that's what it's gonna smell like. It's just a consistent smell. Like it is what it is. Like either you're there and you handle it. Although that being said, olfactory is the first thing to lose its memory. So like that would be the first thing to get used to something, is your nose.
Sure.
So we'll be there for like 35 minutes in July, and then we'll be like, oh yeah, it's gone now, and we don't smell it. And then we'll get home and be like, wow, it smells so good.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. First to lose its memory, but my God, it's the strongest type to bring back memory. God.
Yes, for sure. So we're having that conversation between Malcolm and Gerald, and Gerald's like, look, you know, I did what you wanted me to. I reached for the stars, and I went out of my comfort zone. Like maybe it's time for you to do that. And so he kind of calls him out, like, prove it.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking the big game, so let's prove it.
Yeah, he calls it all that hooey you were selling.
I know. And so Malcolm's straight up like, okay, like he's gonna go over and talk to Danny. And again, my heart was all a Twitter.
And everybody yelling.
You know, this is a classic slow burn. I mean, this is the stuff that I love and I hate so much in equal measure. Like, you cannot do it that fast. Like, he doesn't get to just walk over there to Danny and tell her after 3 episodes of angst that he has feelings for her. It's literally only been since Headcase that we got any kind of clue that maybe there might be a Canon Brightwell at some point. So you cannot do it that fast. Like, we need at least another season of will they, won't they, half season, maybe not, I don't know. And I would like him and she likes me, but we're never going to tell each other for their safety and all that nonsense. So it's classic torturous. Although I am, again, for plot, like, he has been ignoring his father's phone calls for how many days now? He has grown the balls to walk over and tell Danny how he feels. And this is the moment that he thinks, maybe I'll just check what my dad had to say first.
Yeah. Like, what?
Voicemail from Claremont. I'm only about to make a life-changing argument, you know. So I'm like, you stupid pizza. Like, this is not the moment to change your serial killer cleanse. You do that after you tell the woman you love that you love her.
Yep.
But again, you have to, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah. And I've called, and I know other people have, I've called Martin a continual cockblock, but like, when you think about it, Bright doing it to himself, because last episode it wasn't actual Martin, it was just his subconscious in the form of Martin. And now, like you just said, it wasn't a call, it was a voicemail. He chose to listen to this damn voicemail,
and I can't imagine he's walking being like, I'm gonna tell this person I love them 30 feet from the person, not even. But first, let me check this voicemail.
This long ass voicemail from my father.
It is. I'm sorry. We're gonna get like an E rating because I've dropped the F word like 1,000 times in this episode.
Oh, don't worry. Most of your audio is cutting itself out when you swear.
Is it?
Well, yeah. Like you said, when it gets louder, it.
Okay. Well, she can just throw some little like sound effect in there.
Yeah.
At 4154, so we do have this actual content of the voicemail. So we have a lot of talk about, like, you know, very vague information about, I'm sorry it had to be this way, I wanted to talk to you live and blah blah blah, the typical vague goodbye stuff kind of that you would get. But I have some questions. So the first thing I said is, like, first of all, where does Martin intend to go? Which obviously he's not going to say that on a voicemail. I'm just intrigued at where he's headed now that he has escaped. I'm really intrigued as to how is this about family?
Me too, yeah.
Because, I mean, he keeps saying it's about family. He told Capshaw, this is about my family, this is about my family. there is no threat to your family right now other than, I mean, even the Endicott thing is seemingly handled
Wrapped up. Yeah.
for this moment. So I'm very intrigued as what this about my family. I need, like, it's not about family, it's about you wanting out. Like, let's be truthful.
Yeah.
Do you think you're gonna reunite and live happily ever after in the mutant head case world where you're all marinating steak and life is great? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah,
Does
he
he
says
have a
it's not
mission?
about murder.
Yeah, so I mean, I
So
really don't necessarily think it's about murder right now. I mean, I'm not saying he wouldn't murder someone to continue being out, but I don't think he escaped with the intent to go murder someone, because
No.
who would he murder?
No.
Simon's gone, the Endicott thing's figured out. There's nobody that he would need, quote, to murder
Yep.
to fix something. Or is he just straight gonna try to bolt? I mean, obviously he's not. Like, we have to have Michael Sheen in the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
So clearly there's going to be some type of 3-episode season
Goose
arc
chase.
of where is he, what he's doing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And in that conversation, we have the return of "We're the Same," and it's been a minute since he has said those words to Malcolm. It makes it very interesting to me because Malcolm in the pilot, well, not the pilot, the first episode of this season, very clearly like states, like, I figured you out now. I know how to get you out of my head, blah, 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 which no, you don't, Malcolm, let's be honest. But we're going to move on. And ever since then, we really haven't heard the "We're the Same." Since Ainsley kind of took over the family talisman, we have not really heard a lot of Malcolm, Martin, "We're the same," the phrase out of their mouth. And I'm really intrigued as how Martin, is that a clue? Is that something? Because it doesn't, not so much. Like, does he just know that Malcolm can think like him and that he will figure out what's going on eventually? It's very interesting here.
Yeah, I wrote down like everything, every point that he made in that message. And the one that intrigued me the most was, "I hope that you find me. You're the only one who can."
Yes.
So, which was said right before he said, I think that was, and it led right into
"Because we're the same." Yeah.
So.
Yeah, like he's the only one that knows his dad the way he does, like straight up. Like, yeah, the U.S. Marshals are getting ready to come in. We've seen all that stuff going down, but it's just nobody's gonna figure it out before Malcolm does. Like, it's good luck to you. It's just not gonna happen.
So I don't know, and I think I've, in our seeing of some behind the scenes photos that we found, for some reason my brain, based on the photos of like the woods, the more rural areas, keeps going back to the cabin from season 1. And so that "I hope you find me, you're the only one who can" thing is just like, I'm probably wrong.
He has been there.
But like, but he's like, been there. JT, so that would be, that would be, So as much as I think I keep like connecting certain things to that cabin, it's like, but why would you go there? Because that would be a first place for them to go look.
Not to mention, that would be a huge slip mentally for him to be like somewhere they've already been and explored.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like that popped into my head with the "you're the only one who can like find me," but at the same time, I'm like, I know I'm wrong.
Yeah. One of the other things I love about this scene is he's listening to the voicemail. So he had a plan. He was going to tell Danny, like, things were looking up. He was all inspired by this case of the week. And then as this voicemail starts happening and things begin to spiral, that camera angle is just going around and around, and it speeds up as it goes, as Malcolm starts to realize something serious has gone down. What the heck is this? Why is he saying these things? And so it's, I mean, literally the camera is his world kind of dropping out from under his feet and spinning and spiraling. So that was really cool camera angle, even though some of that stuff makes me a little dizzy sometimes. But yeah, and so then we of course have Danny coming up to him and saying, like, "Do you know, have you heard?" And I absolutely adore that she stops and corrects the phrase "your father" and changes it to the surgeon. I love that she was like, nope, we're not calling him that. We're going to call him this. Nope.
She can see him already just like shattering right there.
Yeah, like she knows what that intel's about to do, and she has to be the one to deliver it, basically, and that sucks. And then we have the most gorgeous, like, cinematic pan out that I was paired with the music. And it's paired with the lines like, "No, not a bit more," and "No, not a bit less." So that's one of those moments where if the lyrics were going to be considered symbolic, those kind of work. And it was just like, you've got to be kidding me, like this is not happening. And he's
Mhm.
just staring off, and she's
Yeah.
like, I don't know what to do, like how do I help
Yeah.
him?
That's funny because I literally wrote there's space between them and Danny probably doesn't know what to do right now.
Seriously, like it's, I mean, obviously I'm a nerd for a great music cue and stuff like that. We know that that's not breaking news, but this may very well be the contender for my favorite. Like the way it plays with the montage of the three escapes and all of this information that happens, and it was well done. And they actually, now that I've listened to this song 700 times in 2 days, they chop it a lot. Like there are certain parts, like the very first part we hear is really like the second verse.
Oh, wow.
And then as Malcolm is talking to Gerald about like, prove it, go over there and say something, it's actually the beginning of it because there's some intro music and some lead in. And then at the end, when we do that pan out, it's like the climactic, like the most intense part of the entire song, as well as should be during that moment. So very cool. Probably the episode that had me like the most hyped this whole season.
Yeah,
that was great. Like I loved Headcase, the Brightwell in me, of course, but it wasn't just the Brightwell in this episode for me. Like that got me started, but with all the other things that are going on, the music and things, like it was like I was hyper afterwards.
That was really funny. Watching you go off in Discord, I was like, I want to be here and I want to watch y'all freak out, but I also need to sleep.
Yeah, like, and I'm up at 5 to 5:30 every morning to go to work. So when it's 12:45 and I'm still going, but the music.
Yeah, I popped
in.
I like disappeared at like 11:30 maybe, and then probably popped in a little after midnight, and you're still running around. I'm like, Angie, what? Go.
Yes, I was a zombie the next day.
It's like you get up earlier than I do, and I still have to be up at like 6 a.m. So
yeah. So, that episode, I do want to quickly touch again a little bit on some of the previews for next week. So, like I said, we had a very different, significant word change between the Canadian preview and the American preview. There is a big difference. Like I seriously feel like the American preview is very much spinning it to make us think it's Danny. And then the Canadian preview is like, nah, we're not here for that. This is the actual moment that happens. So, I mean, if we're to believe the Canadian preview, I very much think Target implies one of the 3 inmates that have escaped. In my opinion, I think that inmate's going to be Pete. I don't think. I mean, we have 2 episodes.
It's got to be between Pete and Martin.
Well, and there's 3 episodes till the end, so we're not catching Martin the episode after he just got out. Let's be truthful. Like the rest of our season arc is going to be this. So Pete is expendable. So I could see plot fodder and being lost there. I think they like to torture us and make us think it's Danny right after that almost declaration of love, but I don't foresee that. I'm not saying she won't necessarily be threatened, maybe even by Martin between now and the finale. I could very much see, now that we've built this Brightwell situation, to have Martin have her hostage and Malcolm have to make a decision. Like, am I willing to, like, in my mind, my wumpy evil self really wants Martin to either have a knife to Danny or a gun to her head behind her, like, and Malcolm has to make a call. Like, am I going to hit him or am I going to let her get hurt? And we know what's going to happen in that scenario. Like, he's going to take a shot for sure. So, I that's why I just, my
Angie's up there just
really wants to see that moment and just be like, and be very excited. Britt's editing this right now, just going, I hate you, you stupid witch.
Yeah, she's I'm waiting for that.
We'll get that text message as she edits this tomorrow and goes, Angie, I hate you.
Yep, starts yelling.
So yeah, like I'm feeling like I kind of have some ideas about what could maybe happen, especially since we've seen some of those behind the scenes photos of, blood drops in the woods.
In the woods.
All sorts of creepy, delightful things to be like, what did this mean? So I'm really hoping that my wumpy self gets fed for the last 3 episodes, and Britt will just be like, I hate your guts, I'll never talk to you. But on that note, that wraps it up, folks. We be done. We have 3 more to go. Don't forget, we are still, while optimistic, definitely need to be pushing that Renew Prodigal Son hashtag.
Use all those hashtags.
Know that we care. Let's bug the bejesus out of Fox TV and Warner Brothers TV.
Yep.
I saw that we definitely trended at a 7, and someone said maybe a 5.
A 5 or something, someone said. I didn't look during the episode. So.
We need to trend, let's get a trend in on those episodes. And we're in a position where I think both this week and next week, maybe This Is Us is not new. So let's take advantage of the fact that the juggernaut on Tuesday night network television is on right now. So let's step up and let's get them trending and do all that stuff. So keep it up. Send some love.
Yeah.
And thank our actors while they're on hiatus. They're getting a much needed break from what was surely a difficult COVID season to film. So send them some love.
Yeah.
We'll see you guys next
Aurora already looks like she's having a great time.
I know. I'm jealous. All right. We'll catch y'all next time. See ya.
Bye.